being the first one to step out of that team, regardless of who it was going to be, is the smartest motherfucker you could have done. Because your stocks just went through the roof.
Boy, that's cap. There is no shot. Nags is point blank, not good enough.
Welcome back, everybody. Time to talk more about Valorant here on Valoranting, of course. But before we get into that, we also have to thank our first sponsor. It is Twitch, once again, for the X week in a row. Thank you for making this possible, helping us put in some cash flow, and also actually bringing the numbers in. So we see a lot of people chatting with us live right now in Twitch on twitch.tv/DNPeak. We just had a great interview with Doom Bros. Welcome, everybody, in the chat. We're here live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, it's time to get into our segments. And we want to talk about champions because it's coming up. And now that we have big brains to talk about this too, such as Anderzz and Jess, VOD reviewers,
I just
statistician.
got a big forehead.
No. It's all the smart plays. It's all the smart plays. I mean, you've been a coach. The hat hides the big forehead because it's got a big brain, you know? That's how it goes.
Thanks,
but let's get into that. Yeah, I'm trying to make a compliment out of it. I mean, I'm trying, Jess. I'm trying. But yeah, so let's get into the first topic, talking about the most underrated player at Champion. So we each had a player that we wanted to pick in terms of like the slut player, maybe as we call it as a meme, the top 20 first player if we had to go into a top 20. So Anderzz, you're shaking your hands here, you're putting your hands together. I'm gonna let you pick out your pick for your sleeper pick.
So for those who have been following me for a long time, we're talking circa summer 2020. I have been the OG Western Chinese Valorant stan, like through and through. I like.
True.
There's someone talking about it on Twitter last week, and like half of the other coaches were like, "Yeah, the only reason I started watching China or knew it existed is because you were talking about it." So if I didn't choose a Chinese player for my underrated player of the event, actual riots, it would not have been okay. So my selection for the most underrated player of this event isn't Kong Kong, it isn't QQ, it isn't Life, it's nobody. Nobody.
But you had to pick somebody.
No. Oh, you mean Eddie?
The player, nobody.
Nobody. Yeah.
Oh.
Nobody. He is.
So who's this nobody?
So nobody is the info/flash initiator for EDG, and he is quite possibly coming into this event. Well, he's an unknown quantity for the overwhelming majority of players. He's probably a top 5 initiator at the entire event. Like I'm not being hyperbolic. That isn't me like, oh, like edgy hipster Chinese hype train. No, he's actually disgusting. Look at him statistically through the East Asian LCQ. He was the 6th highest clutch percentage at 24%, the 5th highest APR at 0.37, the 4th highest ADR at 152.3, the straight up highest KDA period at 1.43, and the lowest for S per round. He is literally like the support player pipe dream. He is fragging out of his mind, putting up support numbers that challenge the absolutely best players at this event, and his sheer understanding of when risk and reward are going to break in his direction is just disgusting. Like, we've got clips of him here. This is phenomenal. It's a 4K round from him. Ult kill into shock dart kill into 2K. Like, what do you want from your support players, genuinely? Like, in a roster where he's flanked on either side by Life and by Kong Kong, two of, like, realistically the hardest fragging Asian players, regardless of China, APAC, Korea, Japan, include them all. Kong Kong and Life are going to be up there with the best of them. Nobody still stands out as a scoreboard topper on a regular basis. And he's an info initiator. Like, what more do you want? And people don't know his name. So that is why he is far and away my underrated player of the event. You can look at other numbers that he has through the East Asian LCQ. If you look at one of their series, 2 of them that they had to play against Onslayers, top fragging as a breach, 100% cast. Yeah, that's a thing that happened. 100% cast. I think it was like 15 and 6,
score,
15 and 7.
What was the score?
They absolutely shit on them. It was not close.
Okay, so it's a little tainted because I was
it's
like,
a little bit tainted.
Context.
But
okay.
It's Onslayers, who was the grand finalist, so it's not like he was dunking on a team that was awful. Yeah, so
I don't even know what to think about Onslayers throughout that LCQ, anyways. So I can't really that's my thing where we're looking at Edward Gaming and you know the hype. I am as hyped to see Edward Gaming into the national
Me too.
scene. I'm
Oh,
hyped
so
to see Edward Gaming against PRX. Even Benkai himself said that he hoped they didn't have to play EDG in the first place, but they're playing against
Yep.
each other. But that's for me is like the competition. Is it that high? In China?
let me hit you with some extremely dated hopium. This is Omega throwback right here. We're going deep into the vaults. We're going to, I think it's September of 2020, the Huya Summer Festival, where nobody wasn't even playing for EDG yet. I think he was back on RNG at that point. They won that event over teams including Cloud9 Korea, which at the time had Munchkin and Bazzi. So even 2 years ago, this guy was dunking on some of the best players that are still actively in the main circuit.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay.
Just saying.
I'll respect that. I'll respect that. I still find unfortunate that Korea fell off as well in Valorant so far. I hope that they make a comeback. But
They
Jess,
didn't
what?
fall off. They just kept their place, man. That's all it is.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say.
There you go. There you go.
It's
They
just,
kept their
it's just
place in
holding
group
on to the
stages.
same. Yeah.
I still want to believe. I still want to believe, but I can't. Jess, who
All
do you
right.
got?
Well, speaking of people who keep their places, there's another team that consistently keeps their international place, at least in the recent times, is Xerxia. And I got a little bit of a I just realized how that was going to sound. Fuck it. I got a little bit of a controller fetish. Controller players, I've said, the likes of Marv and everything are the best in the world. But scary is scary. We don't say it to like hype up, desks and casts and everything like that. Scary is legitimately one of the best controllers in the world. He's a top 4. I don't care if they don't win games or anything like that. His ability, because it's something that I can't tangibly give you guys speaking about stats. I can't tell you how much impact his utility have. I can't tell you what he's able to, block lines of sights here and there. I mean, APAC as a whole, and when I refer to APAC, I mean every, SEA, OCE, Korea, Japan, everything like that. The entire region has some of the strongest Astra players in the world. And we know several of them. Zeta Division also has one of the best in the world. And it's very difficult to be one of the best Astra players, Viper players in a region that is absolutely dripping in them. This man is one who can consistently... I don't necessarily like his Omen plays, so I'm going to put that off the board. But when the man gets on Viper, he gets on Astra, for example. He's a beast. Likes of Icebox and Viper and everything like that. The man is hard to contest on that level, at least from that role. So that is my underrated player of champions that I think everyone can agree. And I did go back on his 2021 kind of stuff because I was like, you know what? It's been a year. What happens in okay, we had the likes of Nats and whatnot challenging for best controller in the world at that time and whatnot. And I was like, where was he sitting here? And I brought it up and I was like, okay. The man had a little bit of a bad event, but from every event thereon, it was a super upward trajectory. We're talking bum, like anime redemption story. This man shits the bed champions 1 year ago, and every single event they've been to thus far has been just him going higher and higher. This champions, anime redemption story. I'm telling you right now, Scary's coming out.
I sort of agree with you, Jess, because my pick as well for my top 21 or my underrated player of the event is actually Surf of Team Xerxia as well. So, as we were talking about groups before with Doom Bros, and he's like, yeah, Xset, crew, whatever, but I'm thinking about Xerxia at this point. So even Doom Bros thinks that Xerxia is almost like a dark horse of this event. And Nostromo's saying that they never make it out of group. Bro, they had to play against teams like Optic in the upper bracket in Copenhagen, beat them in the upper brackets, and then, of course, lost to Optic in the lower brackets where they lost to Liquid and almost qualified through that. If you look at that series against Liquid, they won that in overtime, a 1-1 map in overtime. And even in the first event in Reykjavik in Masters 1, I think they brought another game into overtime there too, almost qualifying into that one too. So I think that they've just been unlucky with the matchups that they had, but also make the teams fight for their victories when it comes down to any team that has to play against Xerxia. And Surf is going to be one of those main reasons. A lot of people think that Xerxia would have fallen out because they've lost Patty Pan pretty much, but Surf has played so well for this team. If you look at Copenhagen as well, I think he's had 29 first bloods as a Jet, as a Chamber, playing a great Jet on the attack, mostly on Vandals, and doing his role as a defender anchor, as an aggressive opper, and he's doing his role. And on those 29 kills that he's gone in Masters 2, 23 of them were converted into round wins for Xerxia. So that is a winning condition for this team, is if you cannot shut down Surf, then they're basically going to be able to take that round against you, and which is why you're going into distance in this series for this team. If you look at the rest, I mean, Scary's kind of up there, but Sushi Boys is going to be another one to look out for too. But yeah, I think people are sleeping on Xerxia still, and I'm going to keep saying it before we get into every event. I think they might make it out of groups, actually, looking at this one. So, yeah. Over Xset, unfortunately. I said I was going to say that, but
I'm glad you said that, because I was about to come out and be like, oh, they're making it out of groups. That means Xset doesn't make it out of groups.
Yeah.
So we all know who else is going to make it out of groups. I'm glad we're bringing it back up.
Let's talk about that, because we are actually looking at Group C right now, right? Because we just had Doom Bros coming on earlier on, talking about FPX versus Crew, how they're going to be focusing on Crew so far. Xset is playing against Xerxia here. I'm still leaning towards that Xset could be over-prepared against Xerxia and win against this team in the upper brackets, but Xerxia could do the lower bracket run and win back against Xset to come out through the lower seed, and FPX should be the one making it out of the upper seed for me. But do you guys see different scenarios looking at this? And Jess, I think you're going with the okays. I think you maybe have some rhetorical or some rebuttals.
I think I want to put Crew in like my super overrated bucket. You know what I mean? Like I did the same with like, you know, the likes of DRX. I was like last year, I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep putting my money on them, and they just haven't delivered. And I think Crew is at that now where they're not the best in their region anymore. I thoroughly believe Leviathan is better than them in almost every form outside of overheating. I think Crew has a better tightness of their trades, and Leviathan has, you know, weird lurk strategies and random solo plays here and there that I don't agree with, but I still think Leviathan's better than them. So if Crew's the second rated team in their region, then I mean, that's basic quick maths, isn't it? You just don't think that they should be the ones that get out of there. But again, it's always like they come out with some kind of firepower that people can't rebut, and I just hate. That's what I hate. I'm an analyst. I was a coach. And don't you hate that? I get on the desk and I have to use phrases like, "Oh, he's popping off." I am so sick of saying that.
Very analytical of you. The pop-off.
What do you want me to do? I'll be like, wow, bring up a heat map of all the kills he's got. Maybe that's what I'll do on the desk. That's exactly
bring up a
what
heat map of a human silhouette where the head is red, and be like, this is where he's shooting. That's my analysis.
But I mean, even then, Nags kind of stepped up as well into like the last chance qualifiers. But that's the thing for me for Crew. It's like you agree or disagree?
I agree while I disagree. I think he stepped up in so this is my take, and it might be a bit dated, but I think it still holds pretty true. Obviously, I had to prep against Crew for Champions last year. I still to this day believe that we should have beat them, and that we just picked them to the wrong map, because they live and die by Kesnet. Nags is point blank not good enough. Like I agree. I hate. I
thought they replaced
singling out single players on teams, but honestly, like let's look at the Brazilian and like Southern South American. That sounds a little bit weird, but the South American talent pool. How many ludicrous operas do you have available, and yet you're still clinging to Nags? Imagine Crew if you like just yoinked Aspas and put him on here.
Oh,
that's such a top 4 team. Like they don't even have to try to make top 4. Come on.
Yeah, but like, Aspas won't leave loud. That's it.
Right now they're in the awkward situation where it's like Yassine, the old Yassine era guild, where you have a primary duelist that isn't a particularly star opper, and it just does not function. It doesn't matter how good your non-opping duelist is. Valorant as a game does not support that kind of team architecture. It just doesn't work at the highest level. And right now, Crew just doesn't have that. And it costs them games.
I agree.
The lucky part about it right now, where Nag still has a saving grace because of where we are currently in the meta, where a chamber is kind of still allowing you to play a certain operator that could escape, which is why I say that he is able to step up. He's not dashing as a jet anymore and trying to get like a whole W to support Kesnet, but he's able to still put some high impact rounds for the team where they need that closure, so that he needs to do, right? So I think that's why maybe they have a chance. They always have a better chance against like South American teams, but against the international stages, we've seen that it's been lacking a bit. So maybe at this point, you could maybe say that you have crew as that fourth place team potentially. But let's switch on over to another group here, which is going to be the Group A, where we
I
have
love
the
this group.
banger series to start things off between PaperX and Network Gaming. Are those the two teams that we think are going to qualify through the groups, or can Team Liquid actually make it through now that they have the email?
This is the group of death to me. To me, if I had to pick a group of death, I pick Group A. Like, this was the only group that I could do like 2 to 3 different pick'ems with. I sat there and I was pretty confident. I was like, you know what? Edward Gaming, like, I'm like got this like huge unknown factor. All right, no, put them over there. Now, do I think it's Liquid? I'm honestly, I have it up right here of like 5 different versions of the way that I thought this would go. And I didn't want my bias about Leviathan being like one of the most underrated teams. I said it at the last event. And they performed very well regardless of their placement. I think they'll come into this event be even better. Hopefully be able to play the trade game and show everyone how really good they are. But man, I don't know. There's just this like lingering factor of like Liquid always manages to fucking do something. And like it pisses my pick'ems off to no end because I'm like, I don't want to put money on you because you keep trolling and trying to reinvent the wheel, but then you keep making it work somehow. So that's a group of death to me. I think PaperX might have a much tougher time than they're expecting. I don't even care what you win, what you do when you're in a group like this. I think Leviathan and Team Liquid is scary. I really do.
Anderzz, what do you think about this group here?
So I very heavily agree. It's kind of weird because the way that I sort of frame my group of death, it's like it's not necessarily the densest group in terms of like it has 3 insane teams. I think it has 4 teams that are all like neck and neck. Like the parity of the matches is closer than the matches in any of the other groups. And I'm on sort of the same page as Jess, where I think like PaperX's style is not going to do well in this group because it's very like high entropy, very just like off the cuff, heavy firepower, full send, and like, is that not literally every team in this group other than maybe Leviathan? Like, it's going to be really interesting because you're just going to see like rock meets rock, paper meets paper, and that's going to be every single match. And when that's happening, like, it's going to come down to momentarily, like, did this player have better aim today, or did this player have better aim today? Did this guy get 30 minutes more sleep, or the other guy? Like,
it's so stupid to say that.
It's a big question mark for Leviathan for me too. If it's not for Takalila, then, and of course their Ascent is actually quite good, right? That's where they had their only wins pretty much outside of one map on Haven. But if not, it's Liquid against them on Ascent. That's the big test going into that. So I want to keep an eye on that one as well. But let's have a look at Group B, where I think this for me is a little bit more underwhelming, and it feels like it's almost a sealed deal that we should have Optic Gaming and Loud that makes it through. But as I say that, watch the Zeta Division pop off and watch Boom Esports pop off. But I honestly didn't see anything convincing at all of Boom Esports. I don't think they'll do that well, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, they drop a map in every single qualifying match? Yeah, like that to me was hard to watch. In fact, I mean, it took so long. Sometimes I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I think Boom was my bottom rated team. I think that's very fair to say. I think anyone that says otherwise is ridiculous, at least statistically when you're ranking them. But Zeta fans are going to hate me for this because I have many, many of them. And shout out to you know, obrigado gozaimasu. But I just think that you guys, after you lost, I know it was the biggest crowd we've ever had in Valorant. I get it. There's a lot of people screaming and looking at you. I just think that put a sour taste in my mouth. It put a real sour taste after what Zeta did, and it made it feel like a Cinderella run as a result. So I can't put my money on something that looked like a one-off kind of thing. So I put them as third in the group. Yeah.
Okay. And then I want to get into the Group D. Excuse me. This is my group of death because now I want to look at stylistic clashes, actually. And when it comes down to like just Fnatic, the way that they develop their playbooks, 100 Thieves is like this exactly the same. And then you're looking at DRX, where they've been like at the forefront of finding certain metas that other regions take and do it better than DRX does. So at some point, is there going to be a storyline where DRX finally, it's going to be a group stage. So there is an opportunity, if you want to follow that same storyline, that they might be able to beat a team like Fnatic and 100 Thieves within the group stages just because of the pure format and the storyline of how DRX currently plays at international events here, Anderzz.
Boy, that's cap. There is no shot that, like, so this is my take on this group. DRX beats Furia. I think that their structure is just going to beat Furia. Furia doesn't have the firepower to trounce it, plain and simple. I think Fnatic probably beats 100 Thieves. I think that, again, if you just go on a raw firepower basis, it's probably going to be something that's a little bit too overwhelming for 100 Thieves, no matter how well prepped they are, and I expect them to be extremely well prepped. So then you look at the lower bracket, Furia versus 100 Thieves. I think 100 Thieves probably wins that, although it would be fairly close. And then Fnatic beats DRX in the upper. I think that there's a little bit of a kryptonite scenario going on there, where I think Fnatic and DRX play a very similar style, and Fnatic's just better at it. And so that sort of leads us to the clincher. DRX versus 100 Thieves. I think DRX crumbles. They have given me no reason to expect them to do anything other than crumble. Every time they lose a match, in every single event, they completely implode. And it's to the point where if I had to put a cash bet on it, I would always bet against them every single time.
Oh,
Jess,
it's brutal and it's harsh, but like, prove me wrong. Make me want to believe the alternative, because right now there's literally zero. There's not a molecule of evidence to make me go the other way.
It's always about RB, maybe, but
hold on, because remember, we're speaking about stupid stats that actually don't mean shit. Haven't they placed like 6th for like 2, almost 3 events in a row, like within that range? They that's their ceiling. That's their glass ceiling. And recently they've been like knocking on it over and over again. I mean, they should just reach that again, and then that's it. That's the ceiling.
Or it shatters because it's a glass ceiling.
Well, I mean, that's what they're trying to shatter, but it's, double glazed, fully reinforced, like bulletproof shit. Like, so they have to make it out of groups to continue up the DRX curse. So 100 Thieves then has to be the one to sacrifice themselves, the same way the Exit will sacrifice themselves.
Yeah. It's possible.
I mean, you were super happy to see RB finally do well during groups, Jess, and even me as well. And then now it's that versus the 100 Thieves of like, are they actually going to be able to play that well on LAN, as it's going to be their first LAN for a lot of these players outside of Asuna, right? So we'll have to keep an eye out on that, but it's going to be a fun group. I think Group A and D probably the group to look out for, and I can't wait to see that start next week. But let's continue on here and talk about some roster changes, and this one comes to us as a surprise, actually, to the whole community. As last week we talked about on Valoranting, where M3C officially announced that they're going to be free agents, that they're going to bring in two other players to run a 6-man roster, with Purple being the 6th player coming in. And then suddenly Nats announced that he's actually making a tough decision to be a free agent from the free agent team, therefore splitting away from this team and looking for greener pastures somewhere else. And I want to know, like, where do we think he's going to end up? Is he a hot commodity? Did he fall off during the LCQ? What's our stonks right now on Nets?
The man gave himself stonks. The man entered himself into the stock market. He was like, you know what? I can't get the permission to, be my own entity here if I don't step out. And I 100% agree with it, because he just raised his stocks 40-fold. If you can't get an organization to pick you up, okay, everyone's waiting for partnership, etc., no problems. That's all of a problem. He looked at that problem and said, that ain't my problem. That ain't my problem. Let me go find a team that will pick me up that is a hot prospect, because I'm one of the best Vipers, in the world. And yes, okay, maybe if a recent drop-off, I don't think people are going to care about that, because he showed consistency. He showed that, for over a year, he could play at a high level. There was a period, a blip on the radar while people worked out his lurking tactics, and he had to re-identify himself a little bit in his playstyle. I think still stylistically, he's one of the best players in the world, for sure. So if he felt like being in an unsigned team was an anchor, I 100% agree with that choice. I think being the first one to step out of that team, regardless of who it was going to be, is the smartest motherfucking play you could have done. Because your stocks just went through the roof, and you're the only one from M3 champions available to snag up. I'm telling you, that's the smartest fucking play ever. If I was him, I'd be patting myself on the back.
That's awesome. And now you have somebody that's a hot commodity. But Anderzz, after doing all these stats, these stocks, these VOD reviews, these scouting reports, is he the type of person that you want to build around, or is he a type of person that you want, or a player that you want to get picked up within a team that could actually build up this team after?
It's really hard, because I think, interestingly, like, I actually hadn't really thought it in that framework until you just brought it up. Like, is he a build around? And I think the answer is no. I think
I
the
agree.
reason that M3C hasn't actually been able to like push through these last couple of events is because it was originally architected as a Nats build around team.
Mhm.
Like we all knew that like Defo was never a star opper, and that team sort of lived and died by its like the competence and the superiority of its support players, specifically Nats and Chronicle.
Mhm.
And I think the team found out pretty quickly that like, okay, that style worked for a period of time. It was no longer working. As a result, they shifted Chronicle over to the primary opping role, realizing that that was likely the direction they needed to go in to continue to find success. That still hasn't worked to some degree. And so Nats is like, I know that I'm one of the best players in my role globally. Like I don't think there's anyone who has brain cells that would deny that. So him making this pivot is probably the right thing, and if it wasn't him, it would have been one of the others on the roster. It would have been Shao, it would have been Chronicle. Like the team needs to make a change. Like
hopefully it
Which
works
other
out.
team does
Yeah.
then? Like where does think I like this is super selfish, but I mean as a player free agent, that selfishness is how you live or die in
Exactly,
the industry.
yeah.
So yeah, I think about which team or which organization is likely to make partnership and therefore more likely to keep their team rather than paying ridiculous buyouts that are going to come out after that for other players or teams as a whole and everything like that. Let's say smart or easy guess is G2. It's a very easy and safe guess about partnership.
Mm.
Who would you then replace?
Anyone in there.
Whoa.
I mean, Nats is going to be an upgrade, right? We'll have to keep it. We'll have to keep an eye on that. We'll keep the rumor mills going, but also maybe if Bleed GG is part of the partnership program now, right? Since they dropped the whole roster, maybe they build something else with Nats in there too. But with that, we don't know. We're all speculating here. We're just waiting for the news as it comes. So speaking of news, let's move on here to the next hot article. But before that, thanking JUT.GG, of course, our second sponsor for the show on Valoranting today. They are actually an application that actually just recently launched where you can actually join up with like-minded fans, non-toxicity, no toxic environment. You can just chill out with your friends, talk about Valorant, talk about Counter-Strike, talk about anything you want. Follow your favorite esports through this, and you actually have news and information and notifications catered directly to what you want to follow. Me personally, my Valorant stuff, my CSGO, because I keep CS to heart. That's where I first started my CS career. And it's nice to see everything that's going on in there too. And they also have some great articles around, all the big events coming up, especially I'm assuming there's going to be something coming up with Champions soon. So keep an eye on that. So make sure you download the app at JUT.GG on your favorite app store or Android Play. And of course, give us a follow at Valoranting on there as well. So yeah, let's talk about, speaking about promotions, the Riot promotion and marketing plan, right? They came out recently with a video clip that was fucking hot fucking fire. At least that's how I saw it. I don't know if you guys share the same sentiment as me here.
Has there been a video like this before? I wanted to ask before I make statements.
All right.
Yeah, so exactly.
So they integrated the players and everything into it?
I come from playing League of Legends for 13 years before Valorant. Yeah, exactly.
Boomer. Yeah.
Oh, mega. I mean, I turned 30 a week and a half ago. I am.
Happy belated, man.
Esports boomer, all caps.
Yeah.
No.
League of Legends sort of set the standard when it came to hype videos by doing these sort of like animated player feature music videos for every world championship. There is one of them in particular, which like everyone has their favorite League of Legends World song type of deal.
Yep.
And like one of them in particular goes down in history for me as just like utterly mind bent. I literally teared up the first time I watched it. Like that's how amazing this sort of shit is. And so to see Valorant sort of quickly pivoting in that direction, like our first champions, we didn't have players featured in it, and Riot mentioned it's like, oh, this takes a year to put out. We didn't know the players that were gonna sort of be there for champions, so we like didn't integrate players. This time they've had enough runway where they've integrated the players, and now looking at the next year and the ensuing year, you're going to start building more and more narratives around these players to where like they truly become legends of the game, and these videos are just going to get more and more intense as a like result of that. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I love that we included Mel as well.
I
From
agree.
Game Changers is when
Yeah.
I think a tweet came out. I think it was from
There's a bunch of
Uber
them.
Chain actually. Yeah. So one of the staff members over here at Do Not Peak mentioned that Mel used to be a very prominent chamber opper for Game Changers. She was known for that as well, and they include her into that transition of chamber into this video clip. Which also, by the way, and Anders, you talk about we don't know which players are going to be at champions. We got Tens and Shroud in here.
We have 42 players in this. So
Yeah.
like,
What are they playing?
They're
What
like,
Sentinels playing?
fuck it, let's dragnet. It doesn't matter who makes it to champions. Just do everyone.
Well, what's your first
love
what's your
that.
first take on this, Jess? Looking at this video clip, if this is your first time seeing the players integrated into the video clip.
Yeah, so I've watched it already, and this was the screenshot I went through, obviously, and was like, all right, double check, I got everyone there. I think I missed Sassy throughout it at one point. I think I had to go back and rewatch it and whatnot, obviously, Naxi and stuff. But for me, I was sitting there and I was like, these videos, and I was just at an event on the weekend, so these videos impact the community heavily. I think when you work in esports, especially at higher tiers, you don't notice it quite as much, or on like a community level, like people like cosplayers or artists especially. There's a lot of people who sit there for, I had one girl who'd sat there for 16 hours in total drawing just one of these characters integrated into one of the players. I mean, this is a real fucking heavy time investment for some of these artists, cosplayers, community
Yeah.
members. You get a 2-3 minute video like this, and there's someone who's watching it and sitting there watching it, and either it's inspiring them to become a player, or conversely, there are other, areas and elements of the esports, ecosystem that are just as valid as important artists, cosplayers, etc., who watch this and go, I'm going to spend 2,000 euros in the next 6 months building that. And I'm like, there you go. That's how this all starts off. This is how this kicks off. And I love Benkai's little tweet there, actually.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a video like that, you're cemented in history.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing to understand, and it's a weird thing to try and wrap your head around. I think that's what Benkai's trying to say there, is that I'm in a video, I'm integrated in whether it's animated or otherwise, in a way that shows that I am part of the game's history, and that is something that we should celebrate.
Yeah, and sorry, Daniel, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit too before we head back into it, because you just talked about Benkai here and cemented it into the video clip. He basically, the team got literally cemented onto a mural as well over in Singapore on a mural, right? So they worked over with the Southeast Asian offices, and they put this out with PRX and Riot Games over in SEA, and I think that this is something really fucking awesome as well. Not only like giving the hype into champions, but also showing like the sense of community and esports, and how much the esports brings into like the dreams of an aspiring pro player, but also the whole community that it brings across. Like when you look at these watch parties that comes out to you for champions, for all these masters events, look at the crowd that shows up as well from their local offices too, to support the team. Now you have a fan base that's really out there from all around the world that can really follow these players, these storylines and stuff. That's really fucking cool. And then we get into this, like the promotional watch champions, where we have now not integration of only like it almost feels like, man, it feels like one of these ads. I don't know.
Yes, I know.
You know
what
what
you're
I'm talking about?
Yes, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking. I thought about it the moment that they like pushed the camera and
Yeah.
it followed to the chair, and I was like, yeah, I know what this is.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think this is cool. But we're also including talent into it as well. So I just love the whole direction where Riot is going with marketing this sense of community all around. Right, you come from pro players, from influencers, from commentators, from fucking esports celebrities to sports celebrities to all chime in together. So I think that's pretty cool. Not only that though, we also have another skin line that's coming out too for champions, and I think this one's pretty fucking hot. I'm a Phantom gamer ever since the Reaver Phantom came out.
Same.
Now I got to spend more fucking money onto this one, which is going to be the same thing, right? 50% of the proceeds goes into split across evenly across all the 16 teams that are participating into champions. But what are your thoughts, Jess, looking at this skin?
I mean, I know you're talking about the skin of the Phantom. I'm a Phantom player. I had to move away from using the Vandal because it left me with bad habits of tap firing. And, you need to learn spray control when you move from one other tack FPS to the other, So I was like, all right, I got to get out of this bad habit. I got to play Phantom. Sick of the dink, though, but whatever.
Yeah.
But that knife, like, I'm telling you, bro, I'm going to be rocking the Phantom. I currently have Prime Phantom. I refuse to move from it. This is the first skin that has made me move from it. And I want to talk from a business perspective really quickly, is that in a lot of other games, they do the same thing, you know, where they have the shares and the prize money goes to, I came from a game that did that exact same thing. That to have designed a skin that probably beats the one that I refuse to move from and one that I'll probably rock for a while, it's important you do that because the ecosystem and the financial incentivization that comes from that is unreal. They clearly understand that by doing this and putting out a skin that is one of the best Phantom skins in the game at the moment, depending on your taste of skins, of course. But of course, we know the glow and everything like that. That's smart. It's like it feels like Valorant's doing everything from the dev level, from the esports level, from the production level. They're doing everything that is necessary for this to be the best tactical FPS in the world. That's what it looks like from this perspective.
And it almost seems that they've produced like millions, not seems, there was numbers, I forgot the exact number, but it produced millions actually in terms of revenue for the bundle, at least for the Vandal skins from last year. So now that you see the results of it and how positive it is, Anderzz, how close do you think we are of getting these player skins, team skins, buddies, as we move closer and closer to the partnership program?
I mean, as fast as they can pump them out once they have confirmed partnered teams. Like, if you don't think that there's going to be team gun buddies like 3 months after the partnership program is completed, like, you're griefing. Like, that's just silly. Like, obviously they're going to rush to get those out. So
I can't speak.
You can't speak?
I'm in trouble.
Oh, okay. We'll leave it at that. Clip it and ship it. $15 million was the amount that was generated, actually, from the amount of Vandals and Karambit skins that came out from the 2021 bundle. So that's actually pretty damn awesome.
God.
Of course,
what does that 600 mean? What does that mean?
So yeah,
Liquid? Just not Team Liquid, but we're saying 600 liquid. Like, here you go. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
Finito. That's it. Is that what we're saying?
Cut a check.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Fuck?
That's pretty awesome.
You just showed up and you took 600. Oh, okay, whatever. All right.
It gives you an opportunity as well as to like why you want to get part of this partnership program as well, right? That first test, even from an org's perspective, to see how the results came out from what could potentially come out from a Riot's program. Really awesome. What came out of it. Okay, so now let's move on to something a little bit more serious and a little bit. We're still trying to figure out if we're doing the right things from a rulings perspective in terms of what we're about to talk about here. So I'm going to split it into two different topics because it seems as though one for me is something that we could approach it a little bit more to be like, yeah, there's some leniency into here, and the other one, definitely cutthroat, no. So the first one is actually talking about this issue that happened a couple of weeks ago into the Astral Clash and into Valorant, into the qualifiers. There was somebody that came into the Discord into the Valorant one, if not mistaken, and they've mentioned how, you know, teabagging was a form of you know, sexual assault, and they weren't for that. And unfortunately, for that person, there's a lot of people that thought that it was cap what was mentioned here. And then two other people actually went a little bit further into, I guess, harassing this person even more, being Rizora and Dawn. And the results of that actually showed that, you know, Dawn, I think, was like a 3-month ban, and then Rizora was a 9-month ban, or vice versa, because Rizora actually went on to do like even a full-length video to continue with the meme and continue with their harassment on social media. So that said, you had two different types of length in terms of a ban. What's most important too, that what I want to talk about, is the ruling that was decided by Riot. Did we go into the right direction here too, as to giving out the full names of these two players? You know, when it was actually even mentioned from these two players that they got doxxed because of it, because they also, you know, have. They don't use these names anymore, right? So they're dead names at this point. So there's a little bit of like how do you call this, a bad ethic, I guess, to it as well, to put out that type of name out. So what are your thoughts going into this here, Jess?
So I think they didn't use her dead name, to my understanding. I think they used her current name, not her governmental name. So I think overall, the reason is that by using that name on such a very public and accessible Twitter, that her very small, very private Twitter of which her gamer tag was then inserted between that name, meant that people could search that gamer tag, realize it was her,
Mm-hmm.
and as you can see here, someone fucking DM'd me and asking if this was me, because of course they know, maybe they know the Twitter account, maybe they don't know the Twitter account, maybe they saw the full name there and realized, whatever it might be, if you're playing in that particular league, you're identifying either non-binary or as a woman, is my understanding, is
Mm-hmm.
the acceptance of being able to play in that league. So it only takes someone 2 seconds to put 2 and 2 together. And if you're either not out or you haven't given your name or whatever, it's a very tricky and difficult landscape to traverse. One that I, creating many women's leagues around the world and in other games, have had to go to many ethics boards for and work out how to work. Overall, the ridiculous thing about this all is that not only did they dox her, I'm going to do it like this because she still gave her name. She still gave the right, and she would have given, terms and conditions. They didn't do anything against that.
Mm-hmm.
They should have asked first. I agree with that, but obviously from a legal perspective, there's not really much she can do.
Yeah.
Um,
And sorry, just
what-
to add on in clarification
Yeah.
too, so that she added her government name to sign up into the Riot tournaments, but if she actually used her dead name, then Riot would have actually pulled out her dead name on top of that too. So that's where I wanted to put
Okay.
the clarification in as well. So thank you
Cool.
for helping me with that.
Of course, I got you. I think what makes it also worse is that she got doxxed because of a ridiculous ruling. That's the problem with me. Is like, let's say she did something, that was worthy of a ban, everything that she's already put her name in. She gives rights to to use the name when you partake in the league. That's what happens with every league like that. So if she had done something wrong, she really couldn't have argued anything about it. Maybe she could complain or whatever. But the fact that it was over a ridiculous ban, of which the length is also very questionable, is where I find it hard to like sympathize with the admins and everything like that, because it just seemed like wrong. Like there seemed like no redeeming aspect of this whatsoever. It just seemed like bad press from the get-go. So that's where I held problem with it, a lot. And I commented very publicly about it multiple times, and I still do, about the whole teabagging issue.
Yeah.
I put a tweet in the little, I don't know if we can bring that up. I
They'll
don't know
find
if it's
it. They're
appropriate
good
to
at
bring
that.
that up. I put it in the Discord if you guys want to throw that up, about my opinion on teabagging. And if and when, I don't know, maybe I'll still be working with Riot, so I can't. If and when I get to play Game Changers, you bet your ass I'm teabagging people. What is this? Of course I'm going to teabag you. I'm going to lip dip. I don't know what we're calling it for, women who are teabagging, but I'm going with lip dip. Here we go. I give permission to all of my opponents to throw that ass in a circle if they butt me. Cha-cha on my face. Speed run those squats. Double backflip into a squat. Twerk like you're the star of a music video. Dislocate your knees as you hit the ground. And then, of course, throw it back. So if you need a permission to teabag me, you now have it. There we go. And any other insinuation otherwise is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I think it's also like, I guess it's also the fact that you actually got a ban over this, where it's like, okay, I know I want to take sexual assault seriously too, of course, right? Because it's a
Yes.
serious topic. That's for sure is a no-go zone that you should never fucking touch upon that. But I think it's the fact that it was an opinion that was a little bit ridiculous out of that. I think it's okay for us to call that person out or call and make fun of that person without having too much of a big sanction about that. So let's take, for example, remember, Jess, when you came on the show with me on Valoranting and that guy went to a fucking nursery gamer LAN and he had COVID. And then I was like, respect, own up to your mistake. It's all good, bro. Don't worry about it. And you just called me out my mistake and you just told me to shut the fuck up. I think it's totally fine to do that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to take serious offense to that because it was my opinion to how I wanted to say it. And you put your opinion onto that too, and I think it's totally fine to actually have that type of discussion.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. That was healthy. That was it's not like we had super beef with each other. You know what I mean? I mean,
I still fucking hate you to this day.
I mean, look, man, we can meet in the parking lot after the podcast. I'll tell you that much. But if I was the woman complaining, and then people started to meme me about it, I would and again, obviously it's a very sensitive topic.
Of course.
I would have a little bit of introspection about the fact that you are devaluing how serious sexual assault
Exactly,
is
yeah.
by lowering the threshold upon which we can take these kind of these things. This is why I wanted to just meme the fuck out of it, because it needed that. It's not that
Mhm.
we wanted to bully this woman, and if she felt bullied, I feel incredibly, ashamed if she, wasn't able to sleep or something like that. That's awful from a mental health perspective.
Mhm.
But the reason we had to meme it, especially when it comes to internet culture, is we need to show how ridiculous and dangerous that statement was, because it was dangerous. Everyone deserved to know that that kind of opinion is dangerous, because the moment that any other sexual assault, case happens of even innuendo, maybe in a game, or an insinuation, or a really weird and uncomfortable
Mhm.
comment, and people go, "Oh, you're just like what's her face who thinks that teabagging is like that." That's what's going to happen. We're going to devalue actual sexual assault, or very uncomfortable situations where people make very inappropriate comments, and they're going to say, "Oh, it's you're just like the person who thinks that teabagging is sexual assault."
Mhm.
That's what's going to happen, and that's the kind of relationship that happens in language. So, I was very quick to jump onto it. I joined her in it, so I don't know why Riot didn't ban me either.
Mhm.
So I made that comment underneath it as well. I said, "What a dangerous precedent to set."
Mhm. Mhm.
I also jumped in, and where's my consequence? I don't understand. So, yeah, I don't understand. But that was very dangerous, and I didn't appreciate that she did that in any way,
Well,
shape, or
well
form.
put into words. I think that's
Yeah.
exactly that how I wanted to put it. But as you see, I can't fucking speak. So I'm glad that I have you on the desk with me here, Jess, to bring out my opinions as well. But at least to get onto the other end, though, there's been
Mm.
something that's been even more serious into being transphobic
Mm.
comments that is a no go and a no fly zone for sure. But this, unfortunately, only marked over a 3-month ban. So I kind of want to know, like, where do we judge the seriousness of like these bans from a rights perspective, Anders?
I mean, from an optics perspective, and I want
Mm.
to underline from an optics perspective, how it looks is that doing something actually bad is worse than making like the T is less bad than making Riot or the
Yes.
TOs look bad. Like you'll
Hmm.
you'll get more punished for making Riot look silly than you will for actually like doing a bad transgression,
Hmm.
which is a little bit fucked.
Hmm.
Like if I can go out and be transphobic and get a lower sentence than someone who called out a shitty opinion, and like it just doesn't make sense. Like how are those two not just not equivalent, but one is seen as a higher severity than the other?
So how do we actually set a precedence then at this point? Just like
Yeah.
it almost feels like it was. I'm gonna flatten it a little bit too. But when we're looking at VCTs over at first strike qualifiers, where like a certain bug is contextually into EMEA ruled differently than it is in NA, like is this becoming a little bit too subjective in case by case basis, where
Yes.
we need to iron it out a little bit better and set it in stone into an official rule book as to
There
like
needs to
you
be an
do this,
SOP.
you get fucked
Yep.
this much, right? Like you should get like a 1-year ban, a 9-year ban. This is only a 3-month ban into being transphobic versus somebody who's trolling a comment that sets a bad precedence that gets like a 9-month ban. I don't know where we start the conversation to kick this off.
I
So.
think I think I want to give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to say that, like, next year, especially with partnerships and everything happening like that, that those people in charge of these kind of decisions, or the conversations that happen around these kind of decisions, are all amalgamated into a big group, rather
Mhm.
than, well, there's this splinter cell here, there's this that, you know what I mean? Everything's all splintered off, and you got to sell here or sell there, everything like that. I think now, as we get in sort of to the next year of things, and everything starts to come together, I hope, and I want to give the benefit of doubt, I hope that there'll be like this overarching rule set, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Everyone fits under this rule set, and there'll be the same people, or the same sets of people, that deal with the subjective side and the contextual side of how that objective rule applies to them, whether or not severity is, up, down, left, right, and center. So I hope that it's just, well, this admin person or group or trio dealt with this one, and then another admin group over here dealt with this one, and that's why they look so much different. I mean, it just reminds me of university, where I would mark a student, 78, and my colleague would mark, 68. There's quite a bit of a difference. So I would hope that, And this is great here from who's this from? Is this from
I think this one's
France?
from Resora.
Resort. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, about the severity of my punishment. There's opinions on severity of punishment everywhere, including admins. So if we can remove the subjectiveness from it as much as possible, that would be what I would like to see. You
Mhm.
can't rule book everything though. That's my problem. Is I don't like that. I don't like coming in and be like, this is in the rule book. Toxicity equals 3 months. Blah blah, blah equals 6 months. Like there needs to be more subjectiveness. Maybe it's my criminological brain thinking differently about it, but I'm just like, yeah, you can't just have one punishment for everything because
Yeah.
that would be bad as well. So
Yeah.
nice middle ground would be good. Yeah.
We need to get our communications a little bit better here between how we're running the tournaments and whatnot and Riot
Mhm.
overall too, and make sure that we actually underline all of that from the player's perspective with captain's meetings or whatnot, so that we actually really set in stone and understand what we're putting ourselves into when we're playing those tournaments as well. So something to for us to continue to work on as a community and continue to push the Valorant community forward. So with talking about pushing the community of Valorant forward, is talking back into champions. Actually, let's talk about Istanbul coming up too. We actually have information about the venue, about the tickets, finally, because it's been months and months. Well, I can't say months and months and months, but it's been a few weeks where people were looking for updates to try to figure out when we could actually attend Istanbul, because we don't know if the tickets were available during the group stages or all of it, or only the playoffs, only the grand finals. Blah 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 blah. We figured it out. Only in the playoffs, during the playoffs, but that's still what, 10 days I think of games,
It's a
if I'm
long
not
time,
mistaken.
yeah.
So it's still a lot of games. The tickets are very cheap actually. So if you look into the Turkish lira and you convert it into USD, it's like $5 to $7 US a ticket, and it's going to be held at the Volkswagen Arena in Istanbul starting on September 9th. So I think that's pretty cool to start things off. The other thing that I heard, though, and I don't know if you could confirm, Jess, because you're going to
Yep.
be here at this event, but I heard that it was maybe about 5,000 to 8,000 tickets. Is that the amount that's projected right now? Is that the amount of available seats? What information extra do you have here on the arena if you do?
I heard 5,000 as a number. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know what conversation was about. I don't know if it was, is that max capacity? Is that,
Hmm.
what we're able to see? Is that how many we're selling? 5,000 was a number that was thrown around in previous discussions.
Yeah.
I still have no idea what it's going to look like from a seating perspective, honestly. So 5,000 was a number that I was given.
Hmm.
Do I think 5,000 people will show up? Absolutely not. No.
Really?
Yeah.
Like even up to the grand finals, or is it just
Yes.
like really? What makes you think that?
So I would have said yes, but there is no English communication.
Hmm. So
So,
what's your take on that? Because and I'll bring this over to you, Anders, because for
mm,
example, for ESWC events too, for example in Counter Strike, where the events are usually held in France, there's usually just going to be in game French
yeah, but that's because
broadcasting.
it's illegal to not do that.
Yeah, but is there
I don't.
other? I guess other events also don't have a local English or a local broadcast in their language in the arena too. So you think that's actually going to be like a downfall
Yeah.
of the live spectator?
I think that people who would otherwise have gone to the event have a now major disincentive,
Mm,
like, to continue with that plan. Like, let's not kid that, like, people around Europe who are considering going to Istanbul for this event, like, that's not a non-trivial travel. You're not
mhm,
taking a bus and
Correct.
floating down for an hour. You're
Yep.
buying a flight, you're paying for a hotel for a prolonged period of time. The tickets are cheap, which sort of uh like compensates some of that other travel expense. But then it's like, am I really going to go through all that effort to stand in an arena where the announcers are speaking a language I don't understand?
mhm, mhm,
Like, you're
Yep.
literally paying strictly for the ambiance at that point, which,
mhm,
like,
Yeah.
some people will enjoy, but some people won't. Like,
mhm,
personally, I probably wouldn't go to an event if it didn't have English casting.
mm,
And that's, like, not to knock events that aren't English casted. The games are going to be phenomenal, but, like,
Oh yeah.
I would rather just stay at home and watch the English broadcast, or, like, watch a co-stream that's speaking English. I
mhm,
want to be able to, like, share in the community of it, not just, like, feel the rumble of the arena.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, like, and you wouldn't be able to. Like Turkish is a beautiful freaking language. I had a Turkish partner way back
Merhaba.
when, but Yeah, exactly, and lots of other bad words, unfortunately, that I know as a result of that ex-partner. But I think the Turkish language is beautiful. But as someone who lives with a non-English speaking partner, of which I don't speak her language very good, is that when you're sitting there and you're hearing another language for a long period of time, you tune out. In fact, your brain subconsciously will do this as a way to try and focus on other sensory things that are coming in. So if you're sitting there and you try to block out a language you don't understand because it's distracting as well, because you're trying to focus on the game, there's going to be so much sensory overload as well,
Mhm.
just from having the casters be in a language you don't understand. You won't understand anything except for maybe 3 words. I think that's incredibly. You're right. I think it will take away from people's want and need to go, and from what the comments I can see from people online. You're not alone, Anders. I wouldn't go. If I wasn't working this event, I probably wouldn't go and watch because I want to be able to hear and understand. And I don't know, it's different every game. For example, in Siege, we do English. We're strictly, regardless of the country,
Mhm.
you do English. I know other games change depending, but if it's a world championship, yeah, it's always like done in English, or it's a major event, it's done in English. So
Yeah.
maybe I've been spoiled. Maybe I have a particular expectation, but from the comments I can see on every VLR, Reddit, Twitter, even I saw one on Instagram for some reason. I don't know why. I barely even use Instagram. I don't know how to use Instagram. I saw a comment about I'm not going to go anymore. I thought about going. I'm not going to go anymore.
Yeah. No, I'm in the
So
same boat.
that's sad.
As somebody who's not working the event for champions, and I was like, oh, well, it's the first champions with a crowd. I was thinking of going, but I think I'd rather listen to you guys on Twitch. And I don't think I'd go into a live event and put my headphones on and listen in English while I have the crowd around me. So
There's a
that's
delay. How are you going to do it?
exactly. Unfortunate for that, I guess I'll have to cast for myself while I'm in the crowd. That's how it's gonna go. but with that said, let's move on into the next segment. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some more English broadcasts. That's for international events. But I still think that it's great for the Turkish community, no matter what.
Oh,
Here, so I'm
I'm
still
so
looking
happy
forward
for
to it.
them.
absolutely.
I'm so happy
Yeah.
for them.
I think
they deserve this.
One of the things that I will say is that, Jess, when you say that the arena won't be filled, I seriously question that.
I
think
hope they prove me wrong. I hope they
think you are sleeping
Good.
on the Turkish community a little
Yeah.
bit heavily with
All
that
right,
one.
all right.
They're gonna love Alpha Hair. They're gonna love Alpha Hair.
The tickets are cheap enough that while you're not gonna
How
get
cheap?
I think the translation was like $5.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah, okay.
you're not gonna get the international people. You're not gonna get like
Yeah.
so and so from London who's flying over, booking a hotel for 9 days so they
Correct.
can watch all the playoffs. But you're gonna get like everyone who's even marginally interested in Valorant in the greater Istanbul area because it's so
Yeah,
cheap.
okay.
There's no reason not to go.
Yeah.
Okay, then that is a redeeming factor then for filling those seats. I will give them that. Is that if I was in the area of a thing I didn't really understand, but it was $5 to enter?
It's a
I'd
world
probably freaking go as
championship.
well, yeah.
Like,
I
It'll
mean,
be
like,
loud.
hello?
It'll be loud and
Yeah.
rowdy. But speaking about loud and rowdy, let's talk about loud and rowdy news. Actually, is this actually as loud? Because we're talking about a 2015 CS:GO champion and also a Fortnite pro quitting CS:GO and Fortnite more specifically. So looking at here, Arkham, who was an ex-player for 100 Thieves over in Fortnite, has decided to leave 100 Thieves and make the transition over to Valorant to go pro, while also Stewie 2K, formerly of Liquid in EG and winning a major with Cloud9, is thinking of switching over from now streaming into trying to go pro into Valorant. So actually, let's listen to what Stewie has to say first, because he wants to talk about the grind that he's going to put to switch over to Valorant here.
I'll be on. Every day I'll be on the stream. I'll be grinding ranked. I'm gonna try to get into scrims. And then LCQ will happen. Champions will happen. Off season comes. Franchising comes. Even if I miss franchising, I'm down to keep streaming.
You want to double
Watch and be the student of the game and then get picked up, you know?
Oh yeah, you do.
But we'll try. We'll see how everything plans out.
Is it too little too late for players like Arkham and Stewie to make the switch over to Valorant, Jess?
For Arkham, I don't understand. Was the contract expiring with 100? I've got questions. I have a couple of contextual questions before I just start spitting shit about this kid. I don't understand that at all. Who moves from one game where you're already signed to another where I don't know who the fuck you are. I don't know how good you are at the game. You better be the next fucking tens.
I mean,
if
he
you
won.
think
He
you're
won
just coming in.
900,000 in Fortnite, and I think it was like 2 years ago
congratulations.
when it was
So
16.
did a 14-year-old in my country at the fucking Australian Tennis Open. You know what I mean? Because they were throwing silly money because it was great advertising. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care how much you won in that game. People are going to care about results now that we're this far into Valorant. It's not about, oh, your name's this big, you've done this, no worries. Shroud could get away with it because, you know, that's as big as you can almost get, so no problems.
And he's actually good.
And he can actually fucking shoot. I think Stewie is close to that. I think there's enough underneath, you know, experience CV for him to stand on that he can make the progression over. I think Arkham, sorry, buddy, good luck. Hopefully you find a friendship, you know, team somewhere, but or maybe a stream team like Shroud was able to find. But I think for Stewie, no problems. And he said he's willing to put in the grind. He's saying it publicly. He's doing it publicly. I think they're both actually one ends of the spectrum from each other. Stewie absolutely could see it happening. No problems. Do your thing. Arkham, I don't know, buddy. Unless your contract was running out, your agents made a very bad decision.
Yeah. Did you actually get to see a little bit of Arkham play during the Nursery Gamers here, Anders? Because if I'm not mistaken, he played with a pug team featuring like miniature.
Who did he play with? I watched the event, but I didn't actually know. Like, I didn't know who this was while I was watching that event. So that's
who's mentioned it before. So he played. So he's mentioning on his Twitter here on August 20th that he's played with Mr. Funhaver, Temperature, Miniature, and Potato Aimer. And we know Miniature from SQ. We know Temperature that played with EG at some point. And if I'm not mistaken, Moon Raccoons, right? And so they have that pro experience in that sense. And you know they gave Arkham a shot. Maybe he's somebody that's. I mean, he does have a huge following, so he will be known when he's going to be streaming it, right? So.
He's got teal seam energy in the NA scene. Like Zoomer cracked aim energy is really sort of what he's planting his flag on. Yeah. And I mean we've seen Fortnite players come over and actually just pop the fuck off. So
Swifo, Swifo, Som. Who else? What other Fortnite players? Zipan, yeah, Doma.
Like there's a pretty long list. So I mean, I think that there's potential, but to your point, is it too little, too late? Like, probably. He's gonna have to get taken. Like, a lot of these like Fortnite young Zoomer kids that transferred over lucked out getting in at the front because they basically got taken under the wing by all these CS guys who gave them a bunch of fundamentals. Now, like, if you look at sort of the state of the landscape at that point in time, it was you were a cracked Zoomer coming in and having to learn fundamentals, playing against a bunch of other cracked Zoomers who were coming in and having to learn fundamentals. There are cracked Zoomers with fundamentals now in Valorant that you're going to have to play against, and that is not going to be something that you're going to win the battle. Like, it's
if Shroud could do it, maybe a next pro Fortnite can. I could believe in it.
The risk you have to take.
How much Valorant
to put
has
your
Shroud
money?
been playing?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look, fair enough. Like, Shroud was an easy, I think, from multiple areas of business. That was a very easy pickup. But the kind of risk you would have to take on this Fortnite kid now, I don't think it could be explained better than Anderzz put. I mean, there's fundamentals that you have to learn, that you have to be able to do. How many hours does this Arkham kid have? I'm generally, you know, questioning whether or not it's worth the risk of a team to do so. I mean, how famous are you? Like, you legitimately have to be either Shroud or Stewie famous to be able to slot into a team now with no other sort of like transfer from another tier 1 team, like or tier 2 team.
If anything, especially if it's even too late for an example like Stewie, at least for these two players, they have a chance to grind into like the path to pro, which was announced by Riot a couple of weeks ago. So we'll have to see. Maybe they have a chance in there and they grind their way to back to the top by switching over to the game. And if they value their skill and they know how good they are, then we'll probably see them on a pro circuit sooner than later, right? And speaking about teams and speaking about tier 2 events and speaking about path to pros and people who don't make it into the partnership program, Ghost Gaming, they won Nursery Gamers.
That's toxic, man.
What do you mean? I'm celebrating my fellow boys at Ghost Gaming, man. I'm not talking shit about these guys. I actually had these guys qualify into fucking through LCQ to go to Masters 2. How can I be shitting on this team? How can I be shitting on this team? I fucking love these boys. But
Salt in the wound. The teams that don't make partnerships, smile. Like
Kaplan and the boys have actually won into the grand finals of the Nurse G Gamers against other great teams such as TSM Academy, Sonics, and a bunch of Pro Pugs that actually played together into the Philadelphia LAN. I think for a lot of these players that, of course, I was kidding here at this point too, but for these players to put the reps in, teams like Ghost
Yeah.
Gaming, the reason why it had teams like Ghost Gaming qualify through the open bracket, make it through the group stages, potentially make it into Copenhagen, was because they were grinding these events nonstop. So nothing
Yep.
comes into bad value for these teams participating. On top of that, they're playing a LAN here. So this is a big dub for the team that continues to stick together, that continues to work together. And from my eyes, Ghost Gaming still wants to be working with this team into the path to pro scene, the tier 2 scene, and the support staff that Riot is going to build. So I have high hopes for this team still, Jess.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I will use, I'm happy to use the phrase Mickey Mouse, match or tournament or anything like that. I'm happy to say it, but as someone who forced my players for months and months and months to play in Mickey Mouse shit because I needed them to get the reps in, because scrims does not equal official matches. It does not show you what someone's willing to do when they're like holding their breath and shift Wing into sight and everything like that. I mean, that is not what people do in scrim. So yes, these events are way more important than people give them credit for. I know there's been Red Bull events around the world as well that we've had to discount out of stats, for the obvious reason. But the importance for the players and the team, I mean, coaching my team in person was reminds me, I mean, that as well, actually, from a support staffing perspective, coaches, and I was lucky I lived in a gaming house, but some of the coaches sit in their bedrooms for 12 hours a day. Like they're sitting there, they're watching the scrims, they're doing scrim reports, they're doing strats, they're doing, and they just sit there their entire, I mean, Anderzz, I know I'm reading your resume right now, bro, but just, we know better than anyone what it's like to just sit there and you don't leave. And then when you go to a LAN, it's like, it's tangible. Like you see it all, you're part of it all. It's an unreal feeling, man. And I feel so happy for these players. And Path to Pro, I mean, I was very critical of Riot until that was announced, and now I'm very, very happy, and I think guys like this will just thrive.
Yeah, for sure. Anderzz, I mean, you were watching at least the finals for NSG, so how did Ghost Gaming look? Did they change a little bit their strats? Did they look a little bit better? Is it just ironing out the current comps that they were running during the stage 2? What do you see here from Ghost and their potential now?
It was definitely like a reps thing for them. Like, brutal honesty, like, they were bullying. Like their pedigree and like the caliber of play that they were putting down was so far above everyone else at this event. Like it was not close, not even kind of close, and which makes sense. I mean, like you were saying, we had Ghosts going through LCQ to champs. Like this is a world caliber roster that just showed up to a local LAN and just like absolutely slapped everybody. And it's a little bit bittersweet knowing that Ghost isn't in franchising, and like it's a good sign in that like the team's still getting reps. They're clearly planning to stick together, and it's like all it does is it makes me excited to sort of see what happens for them in the future. Like, are they going to end up being in that sort of like tier 2 path to pro circuit, or is this potentially a roster where like one of these teams that gets into the franchising just like picks them up as a 5-stack, 6-stack? Because if you don't bring Kaplan, you're trolling. But like they're a team of a caliber where I think that's a genuine possibility. There aren't many teams that I look at and I'm like, it would be smart for a franchise org to just like cut and burn their entire roster and pick them up. I genuinely think that's probably an intelligent idea for a decent number of orgs with how good Ghost is.
Shush.
Yeah.
My God, so just so you know, they're gonna clip it. It's gonna actually have like, do not peek and Valoranting, branding all over it. And then when they go to orgs, it's just going to be Anderzz saying all that to the camera. And then them being like, hey, here's our resume and our, portfolio for why you should pick us up. It's just Anderzz speaking on Valoranting about
I got you, Kaplan. That clip was for you.
Ghost Gaming now joins the partnership program through Bleed GG. And with that, this closes another week of Valoranting. Jess, Anderzz, thank you so much for joining me for this week. You guys have been awesome as usual. Jess, you are flying out tomorrow for Champions. What's on the schedule in Turkey? What are you eating? What's the first? Have you been to Turkey before?
I haven't. In fact, I hadn't been to Denmark, I hadn't been to Turkey. I've been to a lot of countries in the world, and I was like, wow, Riot just keeps picking destinations I haven't been to, so
Nice.
thank you. But I have to go early because visa problems, of course. My last day of my visa is tomorrow, so I must eject myself from Europe. So, you know, going to Turkey is the best way to do it, of course. So I put myself up there a couple of days early, and I don't know what to do. I'm going to do what I always do, probably sit up until 2 a.m., watch VODs, take a ridiculous amount of notes, and then cut that down about 70 to 80% so I get time to talk about the most important things on the desk. So that's my plan.
Popping off. Players popping off. Yeah, I think you should try out like you know, their font. They're good for olives, hummus, bread.
I
It's very
don't eat
Mediterranean
olives,
food.
but for the
Oh.
Turkish food for the Turkish fans out there, I eat a lot of sucuk yumurta. So don't worry. I will go to every restaurant that sells that. I'm assuming pretty much everywhere. And if I smell like sucuk as I walk around, mind your fucking business.
Anderzz, what you got going on your end, buddy?
Roster mania stuff, but I'm mostly in the shadows for now. Like, I'll be super busy head down for probably the next 2-3 weeks, but then we'll have some exciting stuff going on. So keep your eyes peeled.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep an eye on that for sure because we got game changers around the corner after champions. One more shout out and a quick teşekkürler to Twitch for being our main sponsor for this show for this week. Continue to add the cash flow into our show so that I could eat and keep being big. But that's okay. If I get to keep eating, being big, I'm living life. I'm living life. So thank you all for tuning in once again to another episode of Valoranting. We'll see you next week once again at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/do not peak. Have a good day. Teşekkürler.